Hello, everyone. Welcome to African Esquire TV. I'm your host, Tony Cherie. I'm going to issue a challenge to my African people that we start having different changes inside of our vocabulary and how we reference our issues. So one issue that I consistently hear framed inside of a way that is favorable to our oppressors is the issue of neocolonialism. Instead of hearing people call it neocolonialism, you'll hear people call it corruption. So you'll have Africans from the continent or Africans looking at the continent, and they'll say, look at these leaders, look at them taking this money, look at them taking these bribes. This is corruption. Now, corruption, of course, there's an element there, but if you're completely ignoring neocolonialism, then that means that your understanding of the system is very surface level. When people say that, it reminds me of there being like a landfill. Let's say an African community where the government just dumps all their trash indiscriminately. And instead of actually pointing at the source and saying, wow, why is the government that's supposed to protect the people and represent the people just dumping all their trash in this community? Instead of that, you look at the people and say, hey, why aren't you picking up the trash? Well, that's just a part of the problem, because the bigger problem is no matter how much trash you pick up, there's always going to be more and more that's going to be given and delivered from the government because this is their landfill. That's how we should look at neocolonialism. You could keep saying, why are you people corrupt? But the fact is that you're not looking at the big system that makes them corrupt. And that is one that benefits these Western millionaires, billionaires, and people who are gladly taking the riches of the African people. So we're going to read one story. This is something that's happening in Guinea. And I thought it was very interesting because it's really a clear example of how neocolonialism is operating inside of Africa. This guy's name is Ben Steinmetz. He's a mining tycoon who's in a Swiss trial over a Guinea deal. He has always denied his company, BSGR, paid multi-million-dollar bribes to obtain iron ore mining exploration permits in southern Guinea. He traveled to Geneva from Israel for the 2-week trial. If convicted, he can face up to 10 years in prison. Steinmetz, who is 64, was previously sentenced in absentia to 5 years in prison by a court in Romania for money laundering. Swiss prosecutors saying Steinmetz paid about $10 million in bribes, in part through Swiss bank accounts, to gain the rights to Guinea's ore deposits in the Sinadu Mountains. Okay, so we have this picture. This guy's paying $10 million to get access to the natural resources. What do we always say? Rightfully, the people who believe in self-determination would say natural resources, minerals, should belong to the people who live on the land, not to the government to ration them off to whoever is going to be the highest bidder. Okay, so going forward, it says, according to prosecutors, the bribes to Guinean public officials were paid with the help of Mamadi Touré, the wife of Guinea's former president, Lassana Conté. They also alleged that Steinmetz forged documents linked to the deal. Now, here's the kicker. Steinmetz secured rights in exchange for an investment of around $160 million, but he sold half of them on the Brazilian multinational mining company, Vale, 18 months later for $2.5 billion, netting a massive profit. I'm going to repeat that again just for figures. He invested $160 million. So he paid off about $160 million to some corrupt African politicians, right? He gets back $2.5 billion for this investment. It says at the time it was referred to as a jackpot deal in financial press, but it also raised questions about why the integral rights were granted so cheaply, because a few $1 million to some people is enough for them to sign away their rights, right? The Sudanese telecom billionaire and anti-corruption campaigner asked at the time, are the Ghanaians who did the deal idiots or criminals or both? Okay. Steinmetz has always insisted that he did nothing wrong. In a rare interview with the Financial Times, that he said people don't like success, and it was normal to pursue opportunities in an aggressive way. If you wonder why I'm so anti-capitalism, because this is capitalist rhetoric. People just don't like success. I'm just being aggressive, trying to pursue opportunities. He says Guinea's government stripped BSGR of its mining rights in 2014. They cited evidence of corruption, with which the company has denied. So perfect example for my people. Stop looking at these little individual politicians and saying, oh, you're the problem. Corruption. This is why our country is so derailed. Let's call it what it is, neo-colonialism. There's no reason why these politicians should have the ability to sell off the resources of the people, and especially with no benefit for the people. I mean, at least let it be that the people are getting a lot of investment inside of some type of infrastructure that's actually going to go towards their eventual liberation from the system. But don't let it be just going to the hands of a few politicians who are going to take a few millions. Meanwhile, this person acquires ownership of your native land which is worth billions. This is the situation that we live in. This is what neocolonialism is. So I hope this demonstrates it, and I hope that we understand why this is so dire that we organize around these systems, because until we are ready to confront this giant of neocolonialism, in my opinion, not much else matters on our agenda. You could talk about reparations, but if you're not actually able to stop the exploitation from stopping, it will make you think that those reparations that you get for colonialism are not going to go right back into the hands of these billionaires, since they're continuing to exploit you. These are questions that we have to ask. So that's all I have, you guys. I will see you in the next video. Hey family, this is Tierney Cherie. I'm here to make an announcement that I'm very, very excited to make. I'm excited because I really think this is something that is important for our people. Otherwise, I would not have devoted so much time and energy towards it. So I finished my first book, and the book title is Fostering False Identity: The Child Welfare System's Design of Social Control of the Black Family. Now, why is this book something that I think will be very important for our community? Well, number one, it's dealing with the system of white supremacy, particularly the way that the system has targeted our children. If you don't know, our children are literally our future. Without our children, we have no future. And so understand that the system is very crafty when figuring out what to derail first. And to me, it's no mistake that the system particularly went after the Black family. If you look at what happened whenever we were enslaved by this system, and continues to go after the Black family, continues to go after Black children, continues to try to villainize African parents. So for that, I wanted to particularly talk about this subject. Now, the other thing that the book will deal with is our African identities. Why is it that our African identities are a threat to this system? Why is it that whenever we want to identify ourselves as being African, we get so much drawback inside of the Black community? I think a lot of us are not aware of the history of assimilationist thought inside of our community, this idea that we have to be close to white in order to be accepted. And so that's another subject that we delve into in this book. So I'm hoping that anyone who is, obviously, if you're a parent, a Black parent, and you really want to understand why it is that these systems are going after your children, I encourage you to read this book. I hope that it will arm you with a lot of knowledge and a lot of foresight, not just about how to protect your own children, but how to organize in your community, because that's really the purpose of the book, is to say that we have to organize among ourselves in order to protect ourselves from this white supremacist system. And then obviously, if you're an organizer in general, this is something that I think is important for you to read, because like I said, this is a subject in the Black community that we just don't discuss enough. Child welfare is not something that is going to get enough attention. People, obviously, will organize them around other causes, but this is one that is really important that I feel like we have to pay more attention to.